Sam Brinton. Good afternoon, everyone. It is so lovely to be with you all here today. Still on your time. I love it. I have 3 minutes to finish this entire speech. We got it. Here we go. No. I am so grateful to get to be here with all of you today. As you said, my name is Sam Brinton. I use they and them as my pronouns. I identify as a gender fluid individual. As you heard, by day I get to advocate for LGBTQ youth. It's kind of the greatest job in the world because no one wants to advocate against you. You can really hate marriage equality, but you're not gonna be like, oh, let the gays die. No, it's not really like, there's very few of those, and they're very rare in the space of politics. So I get to go to work dressed just like this. I didn't do this for you. This is all for me, baby. But I walk, thank you. My friends at Macy's are really good at helping me dress well. So, you're welcome. So, all of this to say, I need another, gift card. So there you go. All of this is to say is that I find that what we just heard about genuine, wow, I'm having the same problem. Genuine authenticity comes in many, many forms. As you did hear, my background is I'm a nuclear engineer. I will tell you quickly the story of why I chose nuclear engineering. There's 2 stories. One is the one I tell the New York Times. The other one is the truth that I tell to my friends. I'll tell you the one that I actually tell my friends, which is my mother wanted me to go to a very conservative Christian college in Florida. And so I did the Choose Your Own Major book, made it to the letter N, crossing off every major that was offered at this school, found the words nuclear engineering, was like, Mom, I've always wanted to be a nuclear engineer. To which my mother, member of the community of 3 Mile Island, was like, what have I done wrong? It was way worse than coming out as a nuclear engineer. And I said, yeah, no, I've always wanted to be a nuclear engineer. So I went to get graduate degrees from MIT in nuclear engineering. I find that I bring this to you not because it should make me any more trustworthy. It is wonderful to say that you have a degree in nuclear engineering from MIT, definitely opens some doors. But those are doors that, again, I didn't think I deserved to open. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So we're going to get into some of the reasons that I do this work, but I think the core reason that I work at the Trevor Project is because I'm a survivor of conversion therapy. Many of you may know that New York finally, after years, passed legislation this year working to end conversion therapy. I have been advocating, yes. It is a very, very big deal. And I am a survivor of that. We heard earlier about survivor and recovery groups. I'm a survivor of this dangerous practice in my own experiences. So I am the son of Southern Baptist missionaries. I have lived on every continent across the globe except for Antarctica, which no one should really live on anyway. So I was loving my childhood, truly loved my parents and seeing the world. And while digging through the trash, because when you're a missionary, most of your things are donated, so you dig through the trash a lot to find new toys and stuff like that. While digging through the trash, my friends and I found a Playboy. Non sequitur, I promise I will get back to the normal story. In June this year, I was the centerfold for Playboy, with clothes on, by the way. So, talk about career economy. I was like, if I can be in the New York Times on Monday, I can be on Playboy on Tuesday. This is how you do it. Because Playboy was writing an article specifically about the work to end conversion therapy. Because 40 years ago, Kamini and others wrote into Playboy and talked about how gay was good. In this moment when we were being erased, organizations like Playboy were willing to say, well, maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't be erased. Getting back to the real story, I found a Playboy in the trash. My friends find themselves so excited. We've been raised on VeggieTales, which if you don't know what VeggieTales are, they're like Christian bouncing vegetables. And my friends are excited. I'm feeling so holy and righteous that it doesn't affect me. And immediately tattle on all of my friends, thus by ruining the only sex ed they were calling out for a decade. And my father is beaming with pride until I tell him that I've had those feelings too. I just have those feelings when I think about Dale. I didn't realize I was coming out. I had no idea what the words were because I was an 11-year-old child. My whole point was, you really like this lady in the magazine, have you seen Dale's abs? Like, what is wrong with you? And that was how my brain was putting two and two together. My father would become extremely physically abusive. I would wake up in the emergency room, and by emergency room I mean the missionary emergency room. We couldn't afford to go to the actual doctor, and so I'd fallen down the stairs. My father had punched me so hard that I had gone unconscious. I would have bruises all over my body until my mother would step in and say, this doesn't seem to be working. He doesn't like Dale, but that's not what we were going for. Let's go to this thing I heard about called conversion therapy. To this day, I have no idea how she learned about it. Because only a decade and a half ago, you could have literally Googled conversion therapy and 1-800 change your kid. It was offered everywhere with no limitations as the major practice. Because again, as was described before, we were always a disorder. There was always something wrong with us, and a mental health professional was there to help. I walked into a mental health professional's office and was told that I was the last gay child left alive. All others had been killed as children, but that somehow I had made it through. Now, to many of you, you're like, well, thank God. You're smart enough to realize that that's not what reality was, but I didn't. I've been raised across the globe. If you've ever heard of apartheid in South Africa, if you've ever heard of, in Bolivia, South America, where I lived, I watched taxi drivers be shot when they would rebel against the government. So I thought, of course the government's going to kill a group of people that I've never met. And so I didn't tell a single person. And at the Trevor Project, we realized that that's exactly what happens all the time. Most people, a majority of LGBTQ youth, even in today's age, are not out to a single individual in their school. When we realize that having one supportive person can reduce suicidal ideation by more than 40%, you can recognize that that loneliness was what was actually starting to destroy me. It wasn't my sexuality or my gender identity. It was my loneliness that was beginning to corrupt. I was told the other problem, that the reason the government came through and killed us all off was because we had brought AIDS into America. Now, again, a horrible trope that did remove an entire generation of my mentors, but to be very clear, was not caused by my mentors, and, well, my mentors that never came. This is the lies that I was understanding because they were using information that I already did understand. I told you I lived in South Africa. I lived in an AIDS orphanage. I just never had seen a white person with AIDS. And so my world was, oh, you're applying something I understand to something I do not know, and the trust transfers. This happens to more than 700,000 LGBTQ people who've gone, sorry, I get a little preachy, 700,000 LGBTQ people who've gone through conversion therapy, with 20,000 youth at risk at least every year. 5% of the youth that we serve say that they are currently in conversion therapy. They are calling the Trevor Project. They are texting us from conversion therapy. This is the world that we currently live in, of being told that we do not matter, we do not exist, and that we are diseased. And then I was told the worst news of all, which to many of you may not be the worst, but it was that my God hated me. The reason we had AIDS was because I was an abomination. As a missionary child, who was one of the only ones who spoke the language of my parents for hundreds of miles around, this was beyond excruciating. I knew exactly what an abomination was. You did not have to describe it. A Catholic was an abomination because they had the Pope. People who wore white after Labor Day were abominations for very clear reasons. Good joke. Keep up with me, people. It's a really depressing topic. Gotta keep you interested. All of it is to say, I knew what this was, and now I was one. And so I did what we hear from many of the LGBTQ youth that I serve now every single day. I decided that I was no longer going to live. I heard if you took a lot of pain medication, you would fall asleep and never wake up. So instead of 2 Advil, I took 3. You rebel, you. My mother found me with my arms crossed like Snow White, surrounded by my teddy bears, crying, saying, I am so sorry, God, that I have failed you. I will not do it again. I kept living without a headache, and my devotion to this work increased tenfold. God wanted me here, so I was going to change. Please never think that this is something that people are just not trying hard enough. I know I'm preaching to the room in this one, but this was the idea, was that this genuineness that we heard about before, we are desperate for genuineness in the sexual orientation of our parents in the reality that we are seeing every day, and so we desperately try to fit into it. I would then go through, and I will move quickly through this, and I'm sorry for those of you who have experienced this as well as I. I moved through a burst of therapy techniques. My hands placed in ice while pictures of men holding hands were shown. My hands wrapped with wires while pictures of men touching men were shown. With the heat turned off when pictures of men touching women were shown. It will hurt to touch a boy, Sam. It will never hurt to touch a girl. It culminated in electroshock therapy. I am not that old. I am not young, but let us be very clear. There's nothing like screaming into a room, "Mother, make it stop." And your mother loves you so much that she stays in the other room. She truly thinks she is saving your life. I know many of you right now are in pain from what I just explained. I don't mean to make you sad. We are at a conference where I am surrounded by people who love and support me for who I am. I get to work for the Trevor Project, saving 10,000 youth every single month. Our KPIs are literally in the number of lives I get to save every year. That is the dream come true, because I get to be telling them, yes, I get to tell LGBTQ youth that they're not alone, that I know exactly what that felt like, but that it's not true. That when the doctor was trying to change me, I believed he was doing the right thing. I now stop doctors from ever being able to do that. We have passed laws in 13 states in the last 30 months alone. We are literally passing a law every other month at this point. I dare you to try to keep up with me. Right? Like, I dare you. Every single growth immersion therapist, there are now currently growth immersion therapists who are coming to the Hill. The Hill has literally already said, we've already met with Sam, you're a little late. Right? Like, this is the work that we have gotten to. We are ending conversion therapy on a monumental scale because we recognize that it is wrong to do this to our children. Now, the problem becomes that we do not live in an age where that will immediately happen in every state. So it has to become a public education space. And that's where the Trevor Project comes in. You need to understand about our services because you need to be there to let people know that if they are a survivor of this experience, they are not alone. You do not know if this person sitting to your left or your right is a survivor. Not all of us have gorgeous footwear, right? Like, we are a variety of different individuals, and we come from different experiences. But we all need help. That's what the Trevor Project is there for. 24/7, 365, we have been answering the phone for 20 years. I am grateful to that. I call the Trevor Project as a person coming back out from conversion therapy in the state of Kansas. There was not a single LGBT resource center until I founded one at our university because I was tired of being alone. And they said, yeah, there's one other person. I was like, well, great, there's two now. Yay. And we deserve a closet. That is the world that we are working to fight. And that public education comes from us talking about suicide. I know that we don't want to talk about death. I know we don't want to do that. But we are still dying regardless of whether we talk about it or not. And let's be very clear, I'm going to mention something that we really need to talk about in our community. We don't actually know how many of us are dying. You will hear the lists of named in Transgender Day of Remembrance, and I am very honored to say that the Trevor Project just founded the very first campaign to say we actually need to count how many transgender individuals are actually dying, because we do not know that number. Los Angeles just this year, for the first time in history, said to the medical examiners, you will record the sexual orientation and gender identity of every decedent of a violent death, either a homicide or a suicide, because we don't know how to solve a problem we don't know is happening. Let's recognize that New York could clearly follow that. Sorry, off that soapbox. That's an issue that no one wants to talk about, just like conversion therapy, because we don't want to talk about pain. And I get it. I'm the Trevor Project. My literal job is to be the Pollyanna. I literally am on CNN all the time being like, everything's great, it's gonna be fine, because my job is to make sure that LGBTQ youth know that they're not alone. But they're not alone because we are fighting for them, not because we're sitting back. That has to be our work in this space. Okay, I'll get off of that space. So, we've talked about the end of conversion therapy. I need to bring our whole selves to the fight. So, I told you that I'm a nuclear engineer. I told you why I'm a nuclear engineer. I didn't tell you about my nuclear engineering world. So by day, I work for the Trevor Project. We're ending LGBTQ youth suicide. By night, I still advise a nuclear waste startup company based in California, which is trying to put nuclear waste away from people. I disarmed nuclear bombs before I came to the Trevor Project. I was recruited out of nuclear weapon disarmament into LGBT politics. Way more complicated. LGBT politics is way more complicated. At least neutrons go where you tell them to go. Like, politicians do not. Unless you walk in your stilettos and you're like, you will do this or else. Just saying. All that is to say, when disarming nuclear bombs, when doing all this work, I realized really, really quickly that I was only effective when I was my whole self. And I'm going to tell you the exact story, the exact moment that this really, really happened. So, I worked on the Iran nuclear deal. You're welcome, I saved you all from nuclear war, it's all doomed, whatever, we tried. So I worked on the Iran nuclear deal, it's signed, I fly to Tehran, not in my stilettos, making sure that Congress could understand what was going on in Iran from a technical viewpoint. My passion is explaining nuclear physics and nuclear reactor engineering in very simple terms, so that way everyone can understand them. Why? Because it's just like my gender identity. As soon as I said the word nuclear, 99% of you thought of Homer Simpson and green goo, when that is not at all what I do, not at all. And as soon as a person says LGBT, they're like, I've heard of that like Drag Race, right? That's not my life, right? That is not my life. Some of it is, but like, to be very clear, being a nuclear engineer made me a really great gay, and being a gay made me a really great nuclear engineer because I was really good at explaining something that you have already misperceived just by its initial terms. So, I go to Tehran, we solve the Iran nuclear deal, and here's my story of how my worlds collided. So, we're in the White House. I hope you all get to go to the White House someday, maybe not right now, but someday. And if you walk into the White House, here on your left is a grand staircase. And the First Lady and the President walk down it for the big receptions. And you're a little bit tipsy on wine, you're like, please walk faster, those stairs are not that long. But they're playing Hail to the Chiefs, so they try to make it cute, whatever. Okay, so they get to the bottom of the stairs. This is, I'm sorry, I took a little bit fast. They get to the bottom of the stairs. And this is Michelle and Iraq, clearly at this point, for the Iran nuclear deal. We're celebrating, we're so excited. And Michelle just does this kind of motion when she gets to the bottom of the stairs. Now, every normal human being would think they're not talking to me, they must be talking to someone else. I was like, oh, she must be saying hello. So I just walk over to the First Lady of the United States, thinking this must be a conversation. Thankfully, she was pointing toward me, or else that would have been very awkward. She leans down, she's a goddess among women, and says, honey, your heels are taller than mine. I went ashen white, like ashen white. I am already clear, I do not have skin pigment, and I went clearer. And I was certain it was against the law to have higher heels than Michelle Obama. I was like beyond certain somewhere in there. She says, follow me. I was like, oh my God, Article 3 of the Constitution, thou shalt not wear higher heels than the First Lady. She says, follow me. We walk back up the stairs. I was like, are you gonna throw me off the roof? This seems really inappropriate. I believe, I'm sorry. I wear stilettos, it's what I do. I have 52 pair, one for each week of the year. Like, it's what I do. I am known for my stilettos in DC. So we get to the residence, she pulls back a curtain, and there's a wall of heels in her room. And she says, help me pick out a better pair. I literally squeak. The first words out of my mouth to the First Lady are a squeak. And then help her pick out a better pair, because you help her pick out a better pair of heels. I mean, why would anyone wear a 1-inch kitten heel? Whatever. So, we help her pick out a better pair of heels. We walk back down the stairs, hand in hand now. They literally didn't know, they're like, well, clearly a white boy, so not Hail to the Chief, but what's going on? We get to the bottom of the stairs. Barack turns around and is like, what did you just do with my wife? To which, not thinking this through, this is the actual first words out of my mouth to him were, there was a national heel emergency, but I've solved it. Yes, I told the President of the United States that I solved nuclear war and then heels. He laughs, thankfully, and says, thanks, Sam. I squeak again, because the President of the United States just used my first name. He leans down again and says, Sam, at this point I had a bright red mohawk. I had a bright red mohawk. He said, your bright red mohawk nuclear engineering heels in the White House. Secret Service has asked me 3 times if you're supposed to be here. I know who you are. And I said, well, I know who you are too. Well, of course you do, he's the President of the United States. he asks me a little bit about my work. I get to explain how a nuclear reactor works to the President of the United States. It's really exciting. And he says, well, what do you do when you're not working on nuclear issues? And I realize, this is it. You've all heard of the elevator pitch. This is it. I have the moment with the ear of the president. So I explain everything about conversion therapy that I can, that every major medical association has said that this is discredited, that we are losing LGBTQ youth to this by suicide, that people like me had to survive this trauma and we shouldn't have to survive it ever again. And 2 weeks later, front page of the New York Times, above the fold, President Obama came out against conversion therapy. It was a brilliant moment. It's a brilliant moment. I celebrate that, not saying it as me. To be very clear, I think the best line you used earlier is that we need to have broad and wide shoulders, because although it's probably very uncomfortable with me standing on your shoulders in stilettos, I am grateful to the shoulders. I am never imagining that I would get to walk the halls of Congress in stilettos as I am, as an openly gender fluid individual, were it not for individuals who were willing to say, my shoulders are wide enough to hold the pressure you are about to receive. I understand that. I also understand it was important for me to wear those heels, regardless of my work being about nuclear engineering that night. Because it is never just about being a nuclear engineer. It is never just about what you are doing at a lunch. It is about being yourself. And that authenticity was what helped me recognize that no matter who you were going to understand the trauma I went through and how we could make it stop. I need you to do a few things. There's always homework. Welcome to MIT. I need you to talk to people about what you heard today. You need to talk about general authenticity. You need to talk about conversion therapy. Yes, congratulations. Minors can no longer receive conversion therapy in New York. Adults still can. And if you are a college-age student and you are told we will not pay for the rest of your college unless you go through this, you're going to go through conversion therapy. And they are advertising their services less than 30 miles from here. Let's be very clear, we know exactly where they are because they are still open and accessible. So we have work left to do, and I need you to talk about it. Second, I need you to recognize that there are organizations like the Trevor Project out there, but we are only as good as those who will share our story. It is really important for us to understand that we recognize over 1.5 million LGBTQ individuals, youth, may be at risk of harm, but they have to hear from us first. And last but not least, so talk about Trevor, talk about conversion therapy, and finally, I need you to be your whole and beautiful self. And that means sometimes saying no to people in your life who will harm you. And I will end with this story. It is not political, it is about the individual, not the political party, to be very clear, so that way Trans New York doesn't hate me. So, I told you that I worked for advising President Obama. I still advise the President of the United States, because I'm not paid by the administration. I can do whatever I want. I can say whatever I want, because I just show up as I am. I do this because I want to be in the room, and they have to look me in the eye when they make a decision about me. But, in my contract, because I was smart, let's just be arrogant about that one, because I was smart, I said that the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, who is a known supporter of conversion therapy, is not allowed to be in the same room as me. So, So there have been multiple moments that I have now walked into the Oval Office and watched the Vice President of the United States be escorted out of the Oval Office. I do not say this as a point of pride of like, oh wow, Sam's amazing, we should all hate on Mike Pence. I'm saying I learned long ago, I am good at my job, but I am better at my job when I'm not having to hide who I am. And if you don't believe that I deserve to exist, I don't have to deserve to be in the same room as you. And that is how we have to address some of it. I am not saying to ignore the haters. I am not saying that we don't sit in the hard rooms. I love sitting in a church. I'm a person of faith. Give me a hard preacher any day. You will remind me of my father and I will preach right back at you. But I do not have to sit in that room with everyone, because I can make decisions that take care of my own mental health, just like we all have to do. I hope that didn't end too politically. I hope it ended on a high note. I hope you're all going to have an amazing conference. And I'm here to say thank you. sitting out in this room makes me feel like I'm not alone. And I can take that message to the many, many youth that we serve each and every day. So thank you.